Wonderful. All right. Very exciting. I never know when to start talking. As people are starting to come in, I always feel like I should be saying something so we're not just sitting around. Um, Note taker Kate. Is that you, Kate? Is that your note taker?
Yeah, actually, you can kick my note taker out.
Oh, get out of here. Okay. Very
I've been
good.
trying to get rid of that note taker. It follows me everywhere. It's really
Uh,
creepy.
the beauty of all these new AI programs, right? Yeah. Yeah. We wanted to talk about AI this time, but that's for a future roundtable. That's wonderful. Okay, well, welcome everybody. I think we'll dive in since it's just a minute after the hour. So thank you for joining us today. I'd like to start off just by saying, we really respect the amount of time, the energy investment, both for the speakers and for the attendees at these roundtables. So we're really grateful for the time that everyone puts into these. These are conversational, informal conversations style roundtables that we do where we bring together a group of really, really awesome people and talk about the things that we're doing and the things that are working for us online, specifically around building or growing or managing our businesses. And we try to make these things be, provide you with a few actionable takeaways or insights, maybe things you haven't thought about before, or maybe things you sort of knew but hadn't really focused on. So for myself, for anybody here who hasn't met me already, my name is Steph. My business is Clarity Web Design Studio. We're based in Nova Scotia, Canada. I am obsessed with helping female founders have websites that are findable and functional. Most web designers build things that look nice. And to be fair, I started out the same way. But we go a step further and we build things that actually work. So we are web accessibility advocates. So we're really big on making sure that we're using principles of accessible and universal web design and authentic marketing to create websites that work for both humans and search engines. So when we have clients who go through one of our website rebuilds, which is for folks who've had a website for a while that's not really doing, the things that it's supposed to do, we usually see an average improvement in organic search traffic of about 450%. So we have the data to sort of back up, the reasons why we do all of the things the way that we do, and we think it's really, really cool. So for today, the topic for today's roundtable is following from our February one, where we talked a bit about social media and the risks of relying on a single platform, especially one that you don't own or control. And the website is, of course, something that you do own and control. It's actually probably the only thing that you do, and how it should be the center of your content strategy, like the hub of all of your activity online. Keeping it well organized is really key. We're going to talk a little bit about conversions today and like strategy. And we're not about bro marketing tactics these days. Women do business differently, and there's a lot of reasons behind that. So we want to talk. We'll be talking a little bit around what does it mean to have content, to be creating content that's actually converting into people and customers for your businesses. And it looks like we just lost Jennifer, so we'll start with someone else as an intro. Afton, would you like to introduce yourself, please? We'll do a little, maybe about 1 minute for everybody.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thanks for having me, Steph. It's great to be back. I think, this is a good topic to be discussing, so happy to be here. My name is Afton Brazzoni, and I'm the founder of a content marketing firm called Scribe National. So we're based just outside of Calgary, Alberta, but we work with clients all across Canada, the US, and a little bit in Europe as well. We've been operating now for about 5.5 years. And it really started out as my sort of love for writing. I'm a former journalist, so and beyond writing, I would say like really telling human stories. And I think that's something that we'll probably talk about today because storytelling absolutely needs that human element, especially now. So that's really what we focus on. We focus specifically on things like brand messaging, content strategy, and long form content writing. So that would be things like case studies, white papers, and blog posts. So I think I will leave it there for now, but I know we'll be digging into things a lot more later on.
Awesome. Thanks, Afton. Yeah, we're really happy to have you join us again. I love having you in our conversations. All right, Kate, we'd love to have a little intro from you, please.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Steph. And if you don't know yet, Steph is a fabulous web designer, and I've been working with her for about 3 or 4 years. So if you look at the Get Her Hired website, that's her work. Okay. So my name is Kate Wade, and I run Get Her Hired. And this is a business that I started, like many women entrepreneurs, off the side of my desk on evenings and weekends. I was laid off from a corporate job where I led strategy for a $2 billion business line. And people followed me. People that I worked with followed me and wanted my support with their career materials and career coaching. And this developed into a couple different things, but I will say this, I'm a 6-year overnight success. Okay. So it only took 6 years to move from side hustle to full time for over 2 years now. This is my full time work over 2 years. And now I get cold traffic coming to me that is converting from different places that we'll talk about today. But what I do is I write resumes, I write scroll stopping resumes that differentiate people. There are a billion people on LinkedIn. And so what we're doing is making sure our clients' profiles are 1 in a billion when they're looking for that next executive role. And we're on a mission. What we're doing at our company is we're on a mission to help 10,000 women, thems, and cool men find their way into their next executive role that they've earned. So that's what we're doing over at Get Her Hired, and we work globally with anyone who speaks English. Thanks.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kate. We're really glad to have you join us today. Jennifer, last but not least.
Hey everybody. So I'm Jennifer Cunningham, the founder of I'm Your CMO. And like Kate, I also started as a side hustle, did that for a couple of years, and went full time in 2020. So I'm just a little bit ahead of you, Kate. But so I started out, I'm a StoryBrand certified guide. I started out primarily as a copywriter. And what I was finding was helping people with their positioning and their differentiation, unique value proposition, all of that, helping with website copy. And then I found that clients would be like, great, I've done my marketing, check. And they were missing most of the rest of the funnel and the customer journey. So they were getting awareness, they were maybe getting a little bit of engagement, but they weren't actually helping move people along the customer journey to client. So I call it going from lurking to lead to client. And so I've actually started to shift my business to help people finish that task. And yes, get great copy, get a great website, but then what happens afterwards? What other systems, tools, automations can we put in place to actually do that on a 24/7 basis without you having to hire anybody else or work crazy hours? So that's what I would love to talk about today.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that because it's always like an item on the checklist.
Yeah.
And we're all so busy. We're all carrying so many different responsibilities, and there's life and personal and business, and if you have a team and yeah, I know we're often like, the website, because as web designers, the folks that we talk to, the website is often that very last thing on the list.
Yeah.
And it consistently gets bumped off, even though we're
Yes.
like, it's the thing that everybody's seeing.
And then what are we doing with them? Once we get them there, what are we doing with them to convert?
Yeah. So I love that. That's really great. All right, wonderful. Well, thank you to all of you for joining us today. Maybe Catherine, you want to check in and just check the chat. If there are folks that are joining us, I do recognize a few names in the few names that I can see. I'd love to hear like who joining us today already has a website or already has like specific reasons for joining us today. Like, is there something in particular that you're hoping to get from today's conversation? And then maybe Kate or Catherine, if you can just keep track of those, and we'll make sure that we sort of try to address those today. So we'll start out with like an open conversation around what did my guest speakers, when I invited you to this roundtable, what's like the thing that you think would be the best conversion pathway for your own businesses? Kate, go for it. And this is, we talk over each other. It's cool. Just, you know,
Pick me.
Pick me. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought a lot about this because It's been amazing to see the exponential scalable growth that's happened because of content and good content. And I have opinions and I share them all the time. And I think that this has been one of the ways I've been able to differentiate myself as well as consistently be in front of people is by sharing my opinions in different formats. So if it's on the website, it's very clear. It doesn't look like anyone else's copy. Okay. If I'm writing in my newsletter, if I am writing a LinkedIn post or a LinkedIn newsletter post, if I'm guest blogging for someone. So it's doing the activity. And then I would say the most incredible thing that, well, there's two. One, the copy that Steph and I co-developed as we built the website, people say to me, oh my God, I looked at your website and I was cracking up. I saw myself in you. And those are exactly the clients I want to come work with me because I'm not everybody's resume writer, okay? And there's plenty of other resume writers out there that they can work with, but if they want to work with someone who's like me, they're going to see themselves in my copy on the website that Steph and I built. And then the second thing, which really surprised me, Steph, and we've talked about it a little bit in our work together, is my Google reviews.
Oh, yeah. I tell everybody about your Google reviews because I get, okay, so, okay, yeah, go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. So I work internationally and recently, I mean, within the last 18 months, I've been consistently trying to gather more testimonials. And so this is content that comes directly from my clients' mouths. And it has generated me so many local clients. I had no interest. I live in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm almost Canadian, okay? We want to be with you, Canada. Trust me, all of Minnesota wants to be in Canada. Um, so like I had no local clients really in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And now because of the Google reviews, it's converting and it's the words out of my own clients' mouths. And of course I reply and interact with those reviews. I just got a new one yesterday. It's like it's incredible. So those are the two things, really good website copy, and then getting client testimonials and using that in content.
I love that. So there's a couple things that I love about that because we have a number of clients who, work in industries where public reviews are not really going to work. Like they can't collect public reviews for privacy or confidentiality or, or if they're offering services that, the clients don't want to advertise that they've needed. So that public review thing is beautiful when it's the right fit. But I love that yours is working so well. And I love that I think that a big part of the reason your review strategy is so great is because you are engaging with the reviews. Like you're not just sort of letting it go in the background and not really paying attention to it. I think that's really awesome. So good for you. That's really cool to hear. All right, Afton or Jennifer, do you have anything that you would add to this, like as a conversion that's worked really well for you?
Yeah, I can hop in.
Yeah.
I would echo the point about social proof. And this is something that I always advise my clients too. Like, I think anytime that you can have your customers advocating on behalf of you and sharing their real experience, as opposed to, of course, we always want to position our company in the best way, but it's a lot more meaningful coming from your customers. And so we use a mix of the Google reviews as well and the long form case studies on our website at Scribe. And so that has been really useful to kind of just send along in proposals to people, giving them a chance to kind of understand from someone else's point of view what the experience was of working with us and, what they got out of it. So I love that. And then I would also just say that, like, when I was thinking about the question initially, I think it comes back to the age-old answer that we give regarding a lot of things in marketing, which is it depends. And I think the best conversion method, it depends on you as the business owner, your business, and your audience. And so for some people, like for instance, myself, and it's funny because I'm a content marketer, but I actually find in-person events, word of mouth, to be absolutely fantastic. Now, for some people, they don't want to go anywhere in person. Networking is not their jam. It's going to be hard to force that as a conversion strategy, right? So I think we really have to sit and think about like, where do you shine in your business? Do you love writing your email newsletter, for example? Maybe that becomes your best conversion strategy. So I would just offer that as kind of thought for people. But for me personally, there's been a lot of word of mouth speaking, and then definitely our social proof.
Awesome. That's really cool. And that's funny. I would have thought, Kate, because I think you used to do quite a bit of speaking. Is that correct? Maybe, maybe that's a
Well,
poor
yeah,
memory.
for example, this very moment. But that is a very critical part of it. But it's not, I guess I just don't consider that part of my content strategy, but I guess it is.
Maybe like audio, maybe, I mean, we haven't discussed what a conversion is technically yet.
Yeah,
I was
but I
just
went to
curious.
International Women's Day thing on Friday. Any event I go to, I get clients. It
Yeah,
just, yeah. Then I
yeah.
go in my RBG t-shirt, my Ruth Bader Ginsburg t-shirt, and then people again want to talk to me if they know. If they know, they know.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. All right, Jennifer, sorry, I got a little sidelined there. Go
Yeah, I
ahead.
think the thing that seems to work with a lot of my clients is our frameworks. So using their content, a lot of times, I mean, we have so much coming at us all the time. And
Mhm.
if you can break content up or the way that you work with people, your process, and into a framework that can be, easily remembered and kind of fun and marketable, that seems to be a really nice conversion because it just shows them the pathway, right? Like it shows them the steps they're going to take, and kind of paints that picture of that transformation that's going to happen. So frameworks are definitely something that's been very useful, kind of helping
Yeah,
clients organize and then be able to communicate that.
yeah. So you mean like when you set out that framework that it's easy for the business owner to follow or for
Yeah, so if
their,
I have a framework, like I have something called the lead framework. So like there's 4 steps and each step has it kind of tells them exactly what my work is going to be like working with me. But I help do that with clients to say, talk to me about how you work with clients. And rather than it just being something on a page or when you're bumbling at a networking event, you can say, hey, this is the way that I work with clients. I take them through these 4 steps. So it helps people organize their content, not talk too much, and just kind of get to the point.
yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah, so because we didn't start off talking about conversion. I kind of did that on purpose because I was curious to see what you would say. But I think a big part of our conversations when we're talking with clients is is we need to sort of get into a definition of what a conversion is. And there's this idea, especially like for service businesses like ours, there's no instant transaction sale conversion, certainly not on my website. Like I'm not selling gadgets. I'm not, like it's not like a quick decision necessarily. It's an investment. And so there's a lot of homework and research and, back and forth maybe, and content binging. We talk a lot about that these days, right? Like the people are really savvy online now. We're a lot more skeptical than we used to be. We have very high expectations for what's going to happen on a website. And when the website doesn't provide that, we're out of there. We're not going to stick around. And yeah, like I can go, unless you're me, you're not going to say, hey, did you know your contact form doesn't work? Hey, by the way, your book a call link is broken. Oh, your award category, I can't enter it because, like, so most people aren't going to do that. So, you might have somebody try to visit, try to learn, try to binge that content and not be able to, and you're probably never going to know, unless they leave you a review or something. So I think that's kind of fun. So I think, like when we talk about conversion rates, at least from a website perspective, like a 5% conversion rate, whether that's clicking for an email list or booking a call or whatever, is really good, like for an average website. And 3% is often more common. So then that kind of really, I think that helps to put that perspective because we're all sold this idea that our website's going to bring in a ton of money, or our social channel or whatever is going to bring us in whatever number of dollars overnight while we're sleeping. And yeah, maybe, you know,
One of the,
Millie,
maybe.
sorry to
oh, what,
interrupt. We have
yeah.
a comment from Millie Gormley. She says, to
Oh,
me,
yeah.
a conversion is a bum in seat. For
Yes.
example, a one-on-one appointment with a prospective client.
Yeah,
And
that's awesome. Yeah,
she's
nice to know.
also for maybe in a little bit we can discuss. She has a specific thing that she wants to ask about her website.
Oh, sure. Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I love that, the bum in the seat. That's, I think, for a lot of sales, or not sales, for a lot of service-based businesses. I think if we're selling, if our like sales tactic is to have a one-on-one conversation with somebody, which it often is, right? Like you're creating that conversation in order to see if there's a potential relationship there. I think that bum and seat is a really good conversion uh thing. So yeah, I'm not sure I'd put that phrase on my website necessarily, but you never know.
I mean,
Yeah, Jennifer.
one of the things that I like to do is help demystify and I don't know what the word, make it less scary, this idea of a pipeline. So coming from a corporate background, we talked about pipelines a lot in marketing. And for many small business owners, that's just like, oh my God, I don't even know what that means. And it's scary. So there, you know, bums and seats, yeah, that's one part of the pipeline. And I think that something like 80% of people don't take it that next step further. There's no follow-up sequences, there's no nurture campaigns, there's no, right? So yes, bum and seed is the first step or one step in the pipeline, but how do we get to, you know, keep working with them until they close? I think that's what's missing for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Afton and Kate, do you have any comments about that?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think a lot of people are perhaps a little bit hesitant. They don't want to be bothering leads, and I understand that. But again, it was mentioned earlier how much we're bombarded with information these days. So I think that certainly the follow-up is critical. And, you can think about that in your content as well. Like, not only are you following up with people that have actually raised their hand and wanted to have a sales call with you, definitely should be following up with them, but then also keeping a consistent stream of content going out on your channels so that you do continue to remain visible.
Yeah, nice. Okay, I got a question. Regarding the follow-up piece, because this is something that I fall down on frequently. I'm a big emailer. I do just about everything through email. And so if you were talking to someone who, especially like around like the follow-up procedure, if their follow-up procedure is only by email, and yeah, we're all swarmed with content every single day, especially with this friggin' AI, you guys. But so if you're swarmed with content and you're like getting all these emails every day, and someone like maybe has a bit of a self-esteem or a confidence, risk averse, doesn't want to pester the customer, and so maybe they're not emailing as frequently. Are there moments in a flow, like this conversion flow, where you guys build in a strategy involving a communication that is not email? Because because I default to email all the time, and there's this assumption that they're actually receiving my email, right? Because that's huge, and that changes all the time. And for someone like Kate, if you're dealing with corporate clients, corporate email inbox software programs, like their security settings are super strict. So if you don't have that, there's necessarily no way of knowing that they've received your email. So if you're relying on your email flow to be your conversion strategy, at what point, or have you ever considered, or at what point do you bring in alternate forms?
Yeah, I mean, I've been starting to talk to people about texting. Obviously, it's permission based as well as email, but texting is getting a lot of really good results, especially if they already have a relationship with you. So this is not cold testing, but they've, gotten into your funnel, and maybe it's, it's reminding them to come to your scheduled call. Like there's all of these automations that we can put in place so people don't have to feel in the moment like, oh, I'm bugging them. It's just happening in the background. They've got it set up. That takes a lot of anxiety away from people as well if it's just part of the flow. And I mean, I actually like phone calls. So I know a lot of people do not like doing sales
Really?
calls, but I love them.
That's
I think I just love
crazy
people.
awesome.
It's kind of like what Afton was talking about, going in person and talking to people. So I have no problem picking up the call, but I know many people don't. So.
Yeah, yeah, that's fun. Yeah, I like that. Okay, well, this
Oh,
is a
sorry,
good
one more
one.
thing. I send videos
Yeah,
all the time. So I'll send
yeah.
like an email, but it'll have a video, a little Loom video, something like that.
Yeah, I love those. I love using those videos as well. Afton, is
Jillian,
there anything that you
Jillian
use?
Sel, I'm sorry. Jillian
Yes.
Selby would like to know, does texting work for B2B to senior people? That would have me concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, it's permission based, right? So if they've come into your funnel, there's a way to ask, when you're in the contact form, you can put a little message that says, we'd like to be able to communicate with you via text. They can choose not to, or yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think as long as permission for sure. Yeah, Kate, go for it.
Hi. So in my work, I'm typically people are very discreet when they work with me because they are senior in a corporation. And so they're not giving me their business emails. That's very unusual. I'm usually getting Hotmail, Yahoo, and Gmail accounts
Yeah.
emails. Right. So, I'll say this with follow-up. I send emails because after a phone call that we do, I like to outline, everything we talked about and give them the transparency and the data so they can make an informed decision, right? That's what we all do here where I'm sending you an offer. And then I only follow up one more time because I'm not going to be that person. And so what that follow up looks like usually is I'm sending a tool that I think will be helpful for that person. The only other, and my attitude on this is I'm not bothering people, I'm being professional. And it's interesting because, oh, I don't want to be a pest to somebody. I don't want to, bother them and follow up that much. But my clients are looking for new jobs. And so they need me to lead by example in how I show up professionally and pursue them also. So in my pursuit, I will be professional. I'm going to follow up with them once. They're going to have a clear, tool that's really helpful and useful to them. And you know what? If they need me, I'm here, but I'm not going to go and stalk them any further than that.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
For some clients, when there is more of that back and forth, which there can be, then I like what Jennifer said. I'll send a quick video. I never text though, just
Oh,
because
nuts.
in my line of work through a text number, so that just is not something that works for me. And I don't really have content for texts, but I certainly have content up the wazoo for tools and emails, and videos, because like I said, I have opinions.
Can I just challenge that just a little bit?
Ah,
So I would love to say, like, I have had people say to me, thank you so much for following up. It completely fell through the cracks, lifed, and I'm so glad you followed up because I did want to work with you, or I did. So I would just push back on that a little bit, Kate, because you can still do it professionally and still be who you are, but that's my pushback.
yeah, I think I would say it's kind of like what Afton said initially. Like it depends. I think it depends on the business and it depends on who you're working with. Like we have clients who are social workers. Um, they're not going to do a lot of follow up. It's just not going to happen. Or like therapists, they have like flows, with sort of nurture email flows, but it would be pretty, I think for most of the ones that I can think of offhand, it would be pretty inappropriate for them to follow up and say, hey, are you still feeling stressed? Are you still feeling yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So it's interesting. So it's a funny sort of a balance between that sort of pushy, salesy, whatever thing, but also how would you be interacting with that person if they were face to face?
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure. I think if you maintain that level of I'm here to help you by doing this thing that you said you wanted, and therefore this is how we're going to interact. And like, who was it that was saying, but laying it all really out? Jennifer, you were saying you have this 4-step kind of thing to make it really obvious, like what it's going to look like. And it's that transparency that I think a lot of folks miss, or they start out and they have it, and then as things change, they sort of forget to update all of their things.
I just want to add, yeah, I say on the follow-up side, I would follow up typically at least 5 times. I highly encourage, like, again, a great example about the therapy industry stuff. Like, it is certainly dependent, but yeah, I think definitely. And then even after perhaps say a few months, I'll reach out again you know. So,
Yeah.
and I've closed a lot of deals that way. I would have left a lot of money on the table had I not done that. So yeah, I think it's just dependent on the business for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, when I send out, so part of our flow is, after we have a consultation with someone, we send out a proposal, and there's typically like a 30-day expiry on that, because there's factors that are outside of my control for pricing, but also because then once I have that deadline, then I can keep track of it better, and I can follow up and say, hey, did you forget about us? Or, has something changed? Because often things will, sometimes, especially if we're doing a website rebuild, if a client also needs to book photos for a new headshot, or they need graphic design work or other sort of, additional services, those people have their own schedule and their own deliverables, and and it can be very difficult to coordinate all of those things within like a 30-day window. So so it just helps. I find it very helpful to make sure that I'm organized, on my end for doing any sort of follow-up things. But I'm sure I could still improve. But yeah, I'm not going to start texting. They could tell me I can, and I'll still be like, nope. That is a sacred device right there. If it
Same
rings,
for
it
me, it's
pisses me off.
personal only.
Yeah. Yeah, so they'll just have to accept that that's not how I work. But yeah, so that's kind of fun. So thanks for that. Catherine, are there any questions that we should talk about before we move on to the next?
Well, maybe we can go back to an original one from Millie Gormley. She
Okay.
says, I have a landing page that I'd like to use for webinar signups. My
Yeah.
website is owned and controlled by my dealer, and I have
Mm.
limits to what I can do. Yeah.
So is the question
Oh,
around
sorry.
version?
What? Pardon me?
What is the question around that then? Like how
Um,
to,
Is that viable? Is that useful? Should I even bother?
oh, you mean like, should you even use it?
Yeah.
I,
So I've got a domain, and I've
okay.
actually got two domains, and I'm allowed to have a landing page that is separate from the corporate website. Like the corporate website, I've got limited control over what I can do with it. I can adjust some text, and that's about it. But
Yeah.
it's having my own website, even if it's itty bitty, is that still useful?
I know what I'm gonna say. Does anybody else want to jump in? I see some nods.
You guys tell me.
Yeah. Well, I'll jump in and say, if it's something that you own, uh, I highly encourage it. I don't know why you wouldn't try it out. If is this like what did you say, Millie? Is it a one, like it's an event, like a date-based thing? Is that correct?
Yeah, at this point, I've basically I barely have it set up, and but there's another guy in my office who does have the same kind of thing, and he's using it for webinar signups.
Okay.
So, so basically, it would take somebody to an Eventbrite page, or I don't know. This is the thing for those of us who don't live in your world.
Hmm.
There's so bloody much stuff. There's so much information. There's so many different things we can do. It's so hard to figure out what we should do. And so
Yeah.
when you're not in this space, the temptation is just please let me throw money at you and please do something, make something happen
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
It's just, oh my
Well,
God.
you can certainly do that too. I know it's, and in my industry as well, there's so many tools all the time. There's always new things. And I would say, like, as far as being a technology, like a woman in tech myself, I'm not actually on the forefront. I like to test out these things, but I'm not going to bake them into my business process right out of the gate, especially because there's often little hiccups, like they oversell and they underdeliver. And then you're like, wait, you said you were going to do X, Y, Z, and you actually only do X. So that means I need something else. And now I have to change this other thing. And then all of a sudden, next thing I know, I've spent a ton of time on some stupid little task that isn't actually providing value to any of my end clients. And then I go, oh, wait, what am I doing? So my answer to you, Millie, not knowing a whole lot about what you're talking about, would be if it allows you a space where you can provide a really great user experience to your people that are signing up. Yes, I would 100% do
It's
it.
just a matter of
If it's
figuring
like,
out how to make that happen.
yeah, well, yeah, and maybe it'll take some experimentation, and that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Especially if you have somebody that can help you with it, if you really like super hate it. Like maybe that person in your office could help you do some initial setup or something. Or you could reach out to someone. Just saying. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of options for sure, right? The only thing I would say, as far as like an absolute no-no, because I'm seeing this everywhere as well with all of these tech solutions, and I'm totally getting off track here, but don't do the thing where it says, let AI build it for you. Don't. Just don't. Yeah, hard no. There's a lot of easier ways to do it.
How
Is
come?
that, are we good there?
So
That was
why
fun.
would we not want to let AI do it?
Because it's for a lot of reasons, but mainly because AI is scraping the barrel, and it's not going to provide, like, when Kate was talking about having that really authentic kind of voice,
Yeah.
I would suggest that Kate wouldn't have gotten that if she'd relied on a GPT
Yeah.
or an LLM.
Fair. Sure,
Millie,
that makes sense.
here's what I would say. It's kind of like any analysis that we're doing. Good data in, good data out, garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't have like good content to start with, you can't let AI do anything because it's going to, all it is the language learning model, and it actually is built upon replicating language that it's predictable. And if you want to stand out as I'm not sure what your product is or services, but if you want to stand out from even your coworker down the hall, you do not want AI putting the first pieces of data in about what you do. You really want to have that opinion and some of your own branding or persona in there to start with.
That makes
And
sense.
I think AI here, the truth is I use a pencil and I use AI because they both work together, but I very rarely use the pencil alone any longer because I can shortcut with AI. But I don't just use AI alone ever.
100%. Yeah. I'll tell you a funny little, okay, my last little sideline with this one. I broke my wrist a couple months ago, and started using AI a lot more than I ever have before. And it was the most frustrating experience ever. It's beautiful for things like, here's my thing. I need it to fit in 650 characters. And it'll do the thing and I'll go, that's stupid. Do it again. And then maybe I'll get like something good out of it. But if I like writing emails and all of these things that other people are like, oh, I use it for all of these things. And I go, really? Because I had to use it exclusively. I was dictating because I couldn't type, and then it was creating this stuff, and I was like, what even is this? And I swear it got worse over time when everybody else is like, oh, you gotta train your GPT. Well, not mine. I gotta blow the whole thing up and start all over again. I don't understand. It's crazy. So you don't have to use my story as your benchmark necessarily, but use with caution, 100%. And it's not a creator, it's an editor. I think if you use it from that kind of mental state, you'll be better off. You'll get something better out of it for sure. So I hope that helps. We're happy to talk offline. I'll go on and on about AI if you like. But meanwhile, and this is actually, you know what, let's just stay on that topic for a second, because I will say I'm seeing a lot of folks who are using ChatGPT specifically, because I can tell, to do things like conversion copywriting or conversion writing per se, or saying like, what's my SEO strategy, and they run it through these LLM models and come up with a thing. And it's fascinating. It's really, really fascinating. I have opinions about it myself, but I wonder if, because there's a lot of content creation happening with our guest panel here today. So is there anything that you guys see in terms of improving that conversion where AI is helping? If I try to keep it on a positive level. Oh, I like this. They're all like,
I have
Yeah.
one thing. It can help me with volume. So one of the things I like to do is go back even a couple years back and look at the posts that had a lot of interaction on LinkedIn, for example. And so maybe it's from 18 months ago, 24 months ago. Okay, is the topic still a problem my clients suffer from? And if yes, can I work that content? And so this is where I might use AI to say, hey, this, I don't know what the prompt would be exactly. And by the way, there's another, I like Claude AI as a tool to be more conversational because I don't want to sound like a chatbot when I use it. So Claude AI is more conversational, but I'll say I want to reuse this, but I want to take it from this perspective. How might I repurpose this? And usually it gives me something that's about, you know, 50 to 70% okay, but it's still not me. And so then I go in and write it. But it allows me, see, it's a shortcut, and I had good content to begin with. And so it's
Yeah.
a shortcut to come back. And so I can have more volume for conversion then. Because if I know it was a post that was, and it's still a problem for my ideal client, I can talk about it again. And I don't have to think up a whole new widget.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think we've used it for things like if we're dealing with a lot of legacy content on a website, like a really outdated blog, and say if we want to create some sort of a content pillar to try to redirect and sort of stop the because you can cannibalize your own website if you have too many different pages talking about the same thing. So and we can use it for that sort of thing. But again, it's that initial sort of like scan, and then we go, oh, okay, it can sort of trigger that thought process, but it can't do the thought process for us. It's just not there yet. So that's
I find it's
really
good
interesting.
I
Yeah,
find
go
it's
for
good
it.
for research. So right now I'm working with Steph. We have a client that we're working on a project for, and their ideal client is a 20-year-old, just coming out of high school for planning a gap year. Well, obviously I'm not a 20-year-old. So I will like write some content and say, hey, like what other concerns does a 20-year-old have in relation to this topic? And what am I missing? So I'll ask those kinds of questions, and it might give me an idea that I think, oh, I wouldn't have thought that was a concern for that audience. So I like using it as a research partner and just kind of
Yeah.
having a conversation with it.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I would that's cool. Do you use one specific tool or do you use a variety?
I use
You don't have
ChatGPT.
to name names.
I have the paid version of that.
Yeah.
I haven't tried Claude, but I know a lot of people that write copy love Claude. So
Yeah.
I just don't
I
need
also use
another one though.
Yeah, just when you said research, I was going to say Perplexity.
I've heard
I've
Perplexity.
found because ChatGPT, the cutoff for the data is like July
Yeah.
2024 or something like that. So I know because and this goes back to the creation of the content thing. I tried it once to see if it could create like an idea with like five things to expect for 2025 for like online marketing and websites specifically. And it generated this list of garbage, and I was like, oh, that's so interesting. And so I started like writing a thing and then doing some more research and then go, where did you get that? Where's the citation? Where did that come from? Oh, actually, I just made it up. And I go, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean you made
You
it
have
up?
to ask it if it's
Research
telling the truth.
partner. Jesus. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Pardon. Yeah. Use with caution. But you do have to experiment with it a bit to see how you could bake it into your process and if you want to. I think that's kind of fun. Okay, so that was a little bit of a derail for me, but that's all right. So for other questions around, so how many of the folks here today are service-based businesses? I don't think we've asked that yet. If you could put it in the chat, because I know us on the panel here are. I'm curious if speaking specifically around service-based conversions would be useful. Change consulting, cool. Jillian, yes. Hi, Jillian. Graphic design, yeah. Oh, Talia, yeah. Hi, Talia. Nice to see you in here. Financial planning, perfect. Yeah, okay. So what would the panel here today, what would be some quick and easy changes to the way that we're treating our either our content creation, like the strategy behind it, in terms of trying to convert people into becoming either on our email list or bums and seats, or, you know, whatever the thing is. What would be some quick and easy changes that you would say people should consider?
I can start with that if you like, Steph.
Yeah, please.
I think a lot of times we, as business owners, just in general, are really excited to get content out there, or we feel pressure to get content out there. And, you know, I think that that's completely fine. But I think having that strategic like foundation, and it doesn't have to be something long or complicated. It can just sort of be even a one pager that is just a guidepost for you in your business to look at, okay, what are the top 3 or 5 goals I want to achieve in my business this year? And so, for instance, maybe one of them, I think a lot of us in services, you know, we're still selling on sales calls. So maybe one of them is I want to double the number of sales calls that I'm having per quarter. So then it's like looking at that and saying, okay, well, from a content perspective, what do I need to do that's going to help me get there? And so maybe, you know, like Kate was saying, I think this is super smart to look back at your content. Maybe you look back at it and you realize that most of the things you've been posting really have been awareness level content. Well, that's going to help people get to know you, but it's not necessarily going to help you reach your goal of increasing more sales calls. So then you look and you say, okay, well, how do I adjust that to create more bottom of funnel content? Or maybe I need to do things that aren't what we think of traditionally always as content, but maybe it's more of that speaking, more of that outreach. And so I think just starting with a very simple strategy that's goal oriented first before you just say, oh, well, I need to send an email newsletter a week. Well, why do you need to do that? Like, what is the reason why? And so many of us like can't answer that. And so I think just doing that alone will really help people get clear on why they're publishing all the content that they are.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah. Kate or Jennifer?
Yeah, I think one of the things is this idea of personalization. So they talk, you know, in B2C marketing, they've been able to personalize marketing a lot easier, and B2B, we're kind of late to the game on that. And I think that things like quizzes or interactive kind of engagement where you can actually get some data from that and then personalize based on their response, can be pretty simple to set up now. There's lots of great tools out there, and I think that's something that could be a really great tool to help convert people because you're talking much more specifically to their problems.
Yeah, very cool. Kate, do you have anything you would suggest as a quick and easy change?
I kind of, you know, my success has been based on attraction rather than promotion. And I'm a little bit afraid to turn on the promotion because I don't have systems in the back to be able to take care of 100 customers at a time, which, you know, I'm like, the goddess willing, that's what would happen if I did more promotion. But from a really simple content thing that really works is in a service-based business is commenting with your content-based approach on other people's posts. So the strategy there that I use sometimes is that I'm borrowing other people's audiences. So for example, on LinkedIn, I follow Ariana Huffington or Melinda French Gates or Sally Krawcheck, who runs Elevest, right? And I have it set up so it alerts me when they post. And then if I'm in the right place at the right time, if I'm one of the early commenters and I comment from my content perspective, it actually helps me get more exposure to more people. And it reinforces my persona, my brand, how I look at my worldview. And it's, you know, you do that. And I was just reading there was some new statistic out about analytics and comment reach, and it can really really increase your reach on LinkedIn when you're commenting on other people's posts using your content concepts.
Yeah, yes, yeah, that whole sentence there, you can't just take a little piece out of it. The whole thing, you have to use your content strategy, your yeah, and it has to be intentional. I think that's part of the thing. I think a lot of us get caught up on because there's so much pressure to do all of the things and be on all of the platforms and be creating to try to meet their algorithm requirements. God knows what those are. And then, it's all this pressure to create the stuff. And then you kind of lose track of what you're doing it for in the first place. Like it's like the email newsletter. Like, well, you're going to write it once a week. Great. Who cares? Like, what are you going to say? And why do they care? Like, why should they open that email once a week if you're just spouting off more of the same kind of thing and it's not distinguishing anything around like your opinion or your what you do or whatever. So I think that's really cool. And I think I would, my own thing would be a two-part thing. One is that we want, especially women in business, we want these really authentic relationships. We want genuine relationships with real people. We're not talking to the robots. We're not talking to Google necessarily. It'd be great if Google likes it too, but Google has its own thing going on. So what we encourage is using Google's principles for creating really high quality and really relevant content. But don't write it to get to number one on Google. Don't, because Google doesn't care about us as businesses. They're not interested in us succeeding. They want to succeed. They're a business. It's the same with these social media platforms. We're just borrowing their space. So it has a much better impact, much bigger impact. If you remember that nothing wrong with the weekly cadence. Yes, thank you, Afton. Yes, it's true. I don't care how often you're doing it, as long as you're providing useful and relevant content. But again, it's that same thing. Who are you writing for? And make sure it's not just you, like you're not writing for your own ego. Because a lot of us do it, like it's happened, like we're sort of spouting off all this stuff to try to look good or for some sort of validation of the business. And that's not necessarily going to get you where you need to go. And I would even say, from my perspective as a web person, the majority of websites, no, that's not true. I don't know what the percentage is, but there is definitely a shift in the last 5 years for sure towards the user experience online and a shift away from creating a website that's for the business, because the statements and the intention behind a website that's built with your own sort of image in mind versus a website that's saying, this is what I can do for you, my ideal client. It's a very different, it sounds like it's not really big, but it's actually a really big shift in what you're saying and how you're saying it and making sure that anybody can access it and engage with it. And so I would suggest that, anytime you're creating any kind of content, I've been saying this on every roundtable for the last couple of months, ever since somebody first said it to me, but you keep that, if you know who your ideal person is, you keep that on a little sticky note by your computer so that when you are creating stuff, especially if you're just getting started, like you're just starting to practice this kind of thing, to keep that person in mind when you're creating whatever your message is, whatever your statement is, so that you are speaking directly to that person. And why should they care? Like what are you sharing with them that will bring them a little bit of joy would be nice, but maybe not necessarily joy every week, but whatever the thing is, it's that high quality and relevant content. And if that's happening online, Google does like that. It rewards that level of quality, relevant content. So that would probably be what I would say there. So sending out weekly newsletters for years. Way to go, Millie. That's awesome. That's totally awesome. And again, I think it's, and a lot of it comes down to your intention. It's like with Kate with her website, when we did that one, that's been a while, right, Kate? It was a while ago that we did that. It's a very small website. So it's good that way because it kind of forces you to keep things pretty simple. And so you don't get blown up with, because it's so possible. Who was talking about, you can do all of these things. There's so many opportunities and options of how to do things online. It can be really hard to keep yourself to that goal. And especially, as an entrepreneur, like we're all pretty ambitious and we're all pretty capable and we're all pretty smart. And so then you're like, oh, I should be able to do that thing. I want it tomorrow. I need to do all of these things this week in order to be a success, or, whatever the thing is. So there's a lot of pressure I think we put on ourselves as well. So having that list of whatever your intentions are doesn't mean you have to be, that's all you're going to focus on. But I think it does help you to define what that direction is and where you're going to focus your very short amount of energy for that task, you know? So that's kind of fun. So in terms of how much time have we, okay, is there anything that the three of you would say for people who are concerned about being too pushy or salesy? How do you, let's say, I don't know if this would be better in terms of after they're in the bum is in the seat or before, probably before, because the bum in the seat is already the conversion. So the part before that, what would be something you would suggest to someone who is worried about coming across as being pushy or salesy? And we kind of touched on this earlier, I think, but I'm curious to see if you'd say anything else. Anybody?
Well, I'll jump in. So I think that if you think about diversifying the way that you communicate, maybe it won't feel so pushy. So some video, some written text, maybe some infographics. Like if you think about it that way, maybe it doesn't feel so pushy. But I can't remember the stats right now. I got to look it up. But there's that whole somebody needs to see you 11 times. What's that Google stat? There is something about, in order to build that authority, they need to see you in 4 different channels, at least 7 times, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe that would help people if they feel like, if I kind of spread it out a little bit. Now that might sound like too much work, so I don't know what people think, but
yeah, that's a really good point. I can't remember what those exact numbers are either. It is something about 4 and 11 and 7. Those are the numbers that are in my head.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about like the binging of the content, and I would suggest as well, like kind of like what you were saying, Jennifer, and the different types of content that you're creating, because if one of the things that people forget is that not everybody consumes the content in the same format. Like there's so much focus on the visual design of something, but if someone's non-visual, that message is completely out the window, or like videos. I don't watch videos with the sound on. Sorry. So if you don't have captions enabled in your content, I'm not going to turn it on, like turn on the sound. I'm not going to. I'm on my phone at like 5:30 in the morning. My whole family's asleep. Like I just don't have the sound on. So for and that's like an accessibility thing, to have the captions or transcripts, like some sort of a written version of your content. Same with like alt text on your images. So having those different formats allows people to consume your content in the way that is most comfortable for them. And I think that's a really important factor as well. And, we've had folks at our last roundtable, we were talking about doing like mini, what did you call it? Pocket podcasts, which I thought was a really cool way to say like, just like a short series of audio recordings. Essentially, it doesn't have to be a podcast per se, but it's like a way to get like a really distinct message on a short-term basis. So it's not like a huge commitment either for you or for the client who wants to listen to it. And they can get that experience of your personality, your voice very directly in their ear. It's a pretty cool opportunity, I think, as far as like if you're looking at ways of diversifying your content format. Again, there's like a whole setup and how do you do it, and that whole element that may or may not work for everybody. But I thought that was a really interesting idea as in terms of having different ways to get your message across. What would my guest speakers here, do you have anything that you would that sort of aligns with that idea, having the multiple forms?
Well, I agree with you with accessibility and appreciate what Clarity Web Design has done for the content on my site, making sure it's accessible. I would say, though, to the entrepreneurs out there or the people leading small businesses, service-based businesses, there's potentially 4 channels and 11 somethings and 7 something else's, but just do one frickin' thing.
Yeah.
And my thing is tits up, shoulders back, just
my God, I almost
I'm the 6-year overnight success story, but here's the thing is like you have to have a lack of risk aversion. So I would say go for the risk. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Try it, but don't try, in my opinion, like something that happened for me is I tried too many things at one time. It's like making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but also putting bacon and lettuce on it. And then all of a sudden we want to put it in, the air fryer. No, you know, just like maybe some peanut butter on toast is your first go. And then, but
Yeah.
we can try to do too many things. Let me rephrase that. I tried to do too many things, which then frustrated me and had me, signing up to get a job at, Best Buy because I thought well, I'm not cut out for this anymore because I don't know how to share my content or do all these things in 7-Eleven in 4 different ways. Just do one thing and who cares? Just do it.
Yeah.
Actually, very few people are watching until you start doing it well 6 years later.
That's right. Yeah. And, it's for the, like what Millie was saying, like the weekly newsletter or the weekly email, that's presumably that is been working well because I think she said she's been doing it for a long time. So that's awesome. So that's, if you don't start it, you're not going to start.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what everybody has said. I think that focus and consistency are underrated and also can be difficult for entrepreneurs. I know, like, I'm a shiny object person. It's really hard to sort of curtail that. But I think, yeah, you don't actually know how well the strategy could potentially work for you unless you give it the attention that it requires for the amount of time that it requires. And if you're constantly, hopping over here to over here, it's going to be hard to actually get that proper data.
Yeah. 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 Often as a content creator yourself with the copywriting and stuff that you do, this was something I don't know if I've mentioned this to you before, but what I've been hearing lately is these numbers around how many times you need to do the thing before your brand voice actually starts to show up. Essentially, that's my paraphrase. And so what I've been told is anywhere between 30 and 50 pieces of content before it actually starts to become like a part of your voice. They were talking specifically around podcast episodes, like, you need to create at least 50 of them before you start to, actually get your brand voice sort of solid. And so what I took from that was that whole practice, so you got to start and then you got to practice it and don't expect it to be an overnight, whether it's 6 years or 6 days, whatever the thing is. But if you don't practice it, it comes over time as well. So it's that you have to commit to it, so there's a consistency, but you also have to commit.
Yeah,
Would you agree
I
with
haven't
that?
seen those stats specifically, but I agree. I think a lot of the times, I mean, there's two sides to it. Like, on the one hand, I don't think as marketers we can abdicate from needing to get results for clients, but on the other hand, it's not something that happens overnight. And I think business owners need to understand that about marketing. And it is like, to what Kate said about AI tools, the input determines the output. It is actually the same thing when it comes to your marketing. It's like we can't expect fireworks if we're not really putting the effort in that's required to do that. And so I think sometimes people underestimate what it takes. But yeah, definitely the consistency piece is huge.
Yeah, that's cool. Jennifer, do you have any comments on that? Maybe?
I agree. Nothing new to add. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, it was something, the number of things was specifically around podcasts. It came up back in November because we were doing a podcast topic with our roundtables. And I thought it was really interesting because I saw it in a couple of different places. Like one of the speakers said 30 episodes before you're considered feel like you know what you're doing, I think was how he put it. And then someone else who's some big podcasting guy actually said 50, and 50 pieces of content on the whatever that platform is, whatever that format is, whether it's like a blog or podcast or I don't know, LinkedIn newsletter, roundtables maybe. But I thought it was really interesting because it kind of, it's both good and bad because it's kind of scary in terms of the amount of commitment that would then indicate that you can't just sort of, hop in and out of these things, maybe the way that you might like, but also that it does allow a bit more flexibility in terms of as you're creating this content, like you were saying, like don't expect some overnight viral, whatever the thing is. But it can grow over time. And that fits in really well with search engine optimization, right? There is no overnight snake oil with SEO, and everything takes time. So that all sort of works really well. And yeah, like Jennifer just said, takes the pressure of perfection off. Yeah, absolutely. Because how could you possibly be perfect right out of the gate when it's something new? You know, so I think that's excellent. Thank you. Kate, I had a question that was specifically for you for this next piece around that brand voice and being really authentic in your messaging. What would you suggest? I'm assuming there's all women on the attendee list. I don't know that for sure. But this is, I mean, we typically talk more towards the women-owned businesses, or, you know, cool men, like Kate was saying. So what advice would you have for folks who are really cool to want to make sure that this messaging that you're putting out there does sound more like you? Not you
Well, that's the
specifically,
thing.
but
So yeah. Okay. I'll just take this real example. So last week I was helping a client do some interview preparation, right? And they're really excited about this role, and they really want to get it. They want to nail the interview. And so as we're doing the prep, I'm asking the person, well, what's great about you? You know, what do you really want to have come across? What do you want to have people think, feel, and do when this interview is over, right? And she was giving me really vanilla soft serve answers. But I know this woman's a total badass. And she's in New York, she's in the city. You know, I'm like, oh, okay, what's going on here? Time out. And so what the technique I took with her is, who's your best friend? What would your hype girl say about you? I want you to, what's your best friend's name? She's your hype girl. If she was here right now and I asked her to tell me what's great about you, what would she say? And this then developed a whole new approach to how she answered and prepared for the questions for the interview that and actually I think the interview was yesterday. I should follow up with her. But you know, that's a method that has really worked to kind of almost give permission. And I mean, this is what I survive on, is I work with CEOs who are incapable of talking about themselves in a manner that really elevates what they do at the level that the world sees them at, right? And so it's giving that permission, and then also taking the pressure off, because, oh, I'm just being my best friend. I'm pretending to be my hype girl right now. And so when I write, I sometimes turn into my inner hype girl if I'm having any problems with my voice. What would I want her to tell me? Mm-hmm.
I love that suggestion. I think that's really good, because I think a lot of us do struggle with that, you know, with that talking about yourself and feeling like you got to keep it in and keep it small, right? Oh, and there's a question for you, Kate.
I have many actual data points as well as opinions on this. I will say this, I work mostly with women.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. I like that a lot. Thank you for that. I would just like to point out, so when we worked with Kate to do her website rebuild, and this was a few years ago, I think you already had a very strong idea of what that messaging and that voice, like your own voice, was. So it was much easier to implement that on the website than it would have been for someone who's just getting started, you know, or maybe someone who's just starting to practice talking about the things that they do. And I think I've worked a little bit with both Jennifer and Afton for like online messaging pieces, and it changes all the time and it evolves, you know, over time. And so I think it must be really interesting to be someone working with someone who's experimenting and practicing with this stuff. Because I think for Jennifer, I can't remember when we worked together, it was about a year ago, I think. And Afton maybe is sort of I think it was longer ago, because I did a workshop with you, one of your brand messaging workshops. And that was when I was first trying to get a handle on like what sets us apart. And it would be interesting to then go back and do those same exercises, I think, as time goes on, and see what sort of different things you come up with. Kind of neat. Anyway, okay, so now Jennifer and Afton. Oh, sorry, yeah.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, like, to your point about Kate's website, it's exponentially easier when someone has strong messaging first. And that's why, so when we work with different web companies on, like, we'll come in as the copywriting partner, and we're always either kind of really pushing, like if they have messaging, that's great, we'll use it. But if not, we're really pushing for that brand messaging playbook phase of the project, because yeah, without that in place, it's just, you're really starting from scratch and you're really unsure. But Steph, to your other point, it evolves over time. It doesn't mean that what your messaging is this year is going to be forever. So I think it's something that people can revisit, but is definitely an essential foundation to all of the content marketing that you're going to do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. I often say to clients, it's not carved in stone. We're so used to, thinking that, oh my God, this is it. I mean, my business is evolving. Everybody's business evolves as you work with different clients, as you get interest and start finding, oh, I want to actually start working and niching in this area. So things just change. It's part of business. That's, I think, why we love being entrepreneurs, isn't it? We love change and exciting new things.
Absolutely. And always doing it better,
Mhm.
doing a better job every time, or doing something better, either making it better for the client or making it better for ourselves, or hopefully both, right? Is fantastic. So then this question is for Jennifer and Afton specifically. What content strategies are working best right now that you think people shouldn't ignore? Please don't say AI. Please don't say AI.
I can go.
Kate.
So something that, and again, this isn't going to be anything exciting or new, but we're seeing kind of a resurgence again among our clients, would be case studies or customer success stories. And I think, that kind of ties it around to the social proof that Kate was talking about earlier. And so this is a little bit of like a meta example, but I am writing a case study for Scribe National about one of our clients who we write a lot of case studies for, and about how they are using those case studies in their sales enablement process to help them close deals. And so they've managed to do that a few times recently with some of the case studies that we've written. And yeah, I think again, like I won't say too much about it, but just for the reasons that we talked about earlier, and the fact that it is not us saying, oh, my business is great. I know we all love our own businesses, but it's our clients speaking up and saying, here's what this experience with this service provider helped me achieve. And so I think, yeah, it's not groundbreaking, but it's when they're done well, and when they align with a use case that your prospective clients have, I think they can be super powerful.
Nice. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, I
Right.
love that. I agree. This idea of proof is a way to build authority. The other thing, which I'm sure those of us that are in the marketing world have heard a lot about in the last few years, is storytelling. So that idea of really painting that picture of the transformation. I always say to people that you imagine that you're on one side of the river and your client's on the other, and it's this raging river, and it's like, what are the rocks that we're going to point out and sort of really just hold their hand and get them across? And so using storytelling in copy is a really great way to do that too. And it's a great way. I'm sure Kate's probably, her emails are probably like hilarious, right? So like there's a way you can tell stories and, get your personality and your brand voice in there.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. And
That's so funny. I don't use stories.
Really?
I should.
Oh, yeah.
I don't.
I bet you have 100 just at your fingertips. I can tell.
That's so funny. Thank you, Jennifer, for thinking that. I'm gonna now. I got the pencil out. I'm ready.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really great. The other thing that I love about case studies, and whether we call them because I've noticed a lot of people are calling them success stories. That seems to be like a new sort of a trendy name for them. It used to be just like long testimonials. But one of the things that we've always said, and this is also older advice, but it still holds true, is that for search engine purposes, one of the beautiful things about using things like case studies or frequently asked questions, maybe a little bit less these days, but the case studies for sure, because you can use the language that your clients are actually using. And that's a really key piece, especially I find that, you know, over time, the longer I'm in business, the, the less capable I am of using really simple and clear language. Like I forget, you know, where I started out and the things that people that are coming to me understand better. And so I find that sort of funny. So the success stories or case studies or testimonials or whatever, that storytelling piece, you can use the language that your clients specifically use, which then is often something that somebody else just like them is using to do their research on Google or whatever. So it can be a really handy little aspect to help make things more real to them. Because, you know, we get all, especially when you're in tech, but, you know, you get all up in your head about what you think it's all about. And then, you know, somebody coming to the site and they're like, I don't understand this at all. Like, what the heck? Whereas the case
Yeah.
study can be very clear. And that transformation too, right? Like same,
Yeah.
I think all of us on this panel, our clients see some pretty wicked transformations from the services that they engage with. And the way they describe it is not going to be how we describe it. You know, a case study for me, I'm like, look at the before and after, look at these stats, look at this tech, look at this blah, blah, blah thing that nobody's going to understand, you know. So it's fun. It's fun to look at it that way and sort of remember, oh yeah, this is just keeping it real.
Yeah, I
You do
recommend
send
that
me
people.
those reports, and I'm like, well, that's cool stuff. I didn't know I needed to care about all these data points and the monthly website reports she sent me. Sorry, Jennifer.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I often recommend to people to create a word bank. So I just call it a word bank, and it's just maybe a Google Doc, and I'll cut and paste from testimonials or client calls or something where someone's like, "Oh my God, you made, you know, whatever the quote is," and then I can use that right in my copy. For
Beautiful.
one client recently, we were talking about, so she's a landscaper, and we were talking about how like the trouble with getting contractors to actually show up at your house and give you a quote and all of this kind of stuff. So we really leaned into that. And we created the no ghosting guarantee, you know, and so we were able to use that language from a direct client problem. So it is that idea of listening. So that's why case studies and testimonials are great.
Yeah, but that's just it, right? It's listening.
Yeah.
Because that's the piece. It's like when we talked earlier, we were talking about that follow-up. You know, sometimes, especially for, you know, you're a solopreneur, you don't have a lot of people that can help you to do all of the things that need to be done. And that follow-up, sometimes you just miss it because it's just the thing that slides off the list. But that listening piece is so key because you don't ever want your clients, as a service-based business, you don't ever want your client to feel like it was just a transaction and once they paid their bill or whatever and you went off on your way and never thought of them again, because that's not the case at all. But if you don't have that follow-up or if there isn't something to show that you were listening, it would definitely feel like just a transactional one-off sort of a thing. But maybe Kate, maybe your clients don't have as much of an ongoing relationship with you, do they? No.
Yeah, they do. They can. It really depends. So they can. I've had a number of people come back and back. So
Oh yeah.
the in corporate today, it's like 2 years, and if you're not getting a promotion, you got to move on, and that's especially to keep a market rate in your salary. So yeah, I do see people return. It's like a high number, but they come back and they refer their friends, their besties. They refer their besties.
Nice. Well, there's that validation and proof again, right? That as far as conversion goes, I think you're already starting from a position of a little bit of trust, you know, when you can have that. So that's wonderful. I think that's really great.
This is your
Catherine,
10
you're not
minute.
keeping me on. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I just looked over and went, oh.
I didn't want to
Did we have any
interrupt.
questions do we have any questions that already came up in the chat that we haven't talked? I think Millie had to go. Is that right? So
Yeah,
we talked a little bit about
yeah,
her
she has
question.
to go. No, we've covered everything in the chat. But this would be a good time for anybody to ask questions if they like.
Yeah. If you do have any questions that we haven't addressed or something that's maybe come up during the conversation, feel free to throw them in there. Until we get some questions for my guest speakers, are there any questions that you have based on the things you've heard from others on this panel today? Has anything come up for you I'm going to get out my pencil and write that down, or, you know, I'm going to go do some research, or
Yeah,
Anything like that?
I loved Kate's talk at the very beginning about Google reviews. It's like, oh my God, what a missed opportunity for me. And it's funny because I tend to work with clients all over the world. I never think about my local market. And that,
Yeah.
I mean, that's easy enough to set up, right? In terms of creating a little system to get review. I mean, brilliant. I
Yep.
love it.
Okay, let me just throw in there though that Kate's like something that Kate is doing specifically around collecting those reviews, like the quantity of her reviews that are stupendous is really, really high. And I don't see that in a lot of other service businesses, you know, that we have like we have the Google review available, but we don't like sometimes I don't know if people like sometimes people just don't want to. I actually have better success with my long form feedback survey than I do from leaving a public review on Google, which is just a funny little thing with my own clients. So yes, having it, but it has to be, I guess it's just like everything else we're talking about. There has to be an intention behind it, how you're gonna
So what do you do,
implement
Kate?
it and
What do
use
you
it.
do to get those reviews?
Yeah, Kate, what are you doing? Just
Well,
being awesome?
first of all, here's my analogy. My clients are little bald eagle eggs, and my team and we are the eagles taking care of the nest and taking care of the egg. And so that by the time that eagle pips out and we've taught them to fly, they're like, I wish I could be a baby egg again. So it's the customer journey that how we're treating the client, that whole experience when they have when they come in to see me, I don't over explain. So they don't need to see how I'm deveining the shrimp or gutting the fish. They just need to know that that fish is the best fish they've ever had in their life. And so it's that whole customer centric process that I am constant, and I have to remind my team quite frequently, hey, if you were going to decide this from the point of what's best for the egg, what would you do? Right? What would you do? Because it's not about us eagles, it's not about the nest, it's not about the tree, it's not about the lake, it's about this egg. So if we make a decision from that point of view, we're going to be doing the right kinds of things, and not overwhelming our clients and nothing like that. And so I think it's really good service. And then we ask for their reviews. And it's so interesting because 99% of the time when I'm working with the client, I never allow them to start anything from a blank page because they don't have time for that. My clients are very, very busy people. They don't have time to look at a blank page and do homework. But in the Google review, I don't give them anything to talk about. And so those are all their own words. I am not giving them bullet points, nothing. But
Fantastic.
that's
Yeah, that's
that.
so interesting. And I think I wonder, is that something that's changed over time for you? Like with the way that these, I mean, part of it might just be the momentum of the evolution of your business.
It's asking definitely helps.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's excellent. I was curious because with my own business, when I started going full time back in 2021, because I was doing it as a side hustle for a lot of years before that, I was getting a lot of reviews, and then it kind of sort of seemed to trickled out. And so then I started doing because people were more than happy to say the reviews, you know, like to me in a conversation, but not so much translated into a Google review or whatever. And so then I started doing testimonial interviews where like at the wrap up, you know, of the project, we'd have a conversation, and then I would take those little elements that they'd said and put it together into like a little paragraph and said, this is what you said. Would you use this as your jumping off point as a review? And that worked for a while. But in the last year or so, I've noticed that's not as successful either. So something else seems to have changed. I'm not really sure what it is. Maybe it's something I'm doing, maybe it's something in the zeitgeist. I don't know. But it's interesting how these things can evolve over time.
Can I jump in with a question from Talia?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
She says, what do you think of these sales landing pages that are very long with lots of content? Is it too much or does it work?
Oh, it depends. is it like a recipe blog? Like I guess it depends on what all that content is for. You know, if it's serving the purpose of the program or whatever it is that, you know, is trying to get that conversion, that's one thing. If it's only on there for search engine purposes, I mean, you can tell typically, like those recipe blogs, you know, let me tell you all about my grandma and my upbringing before I even get to the locally sourced eggs that I, whatever, should be this color.
Someone,
you know.
someone could admit to committing murder in the middle of a recipe blog and we'd never know it.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know, it's kind of like the question then really is it must be kind of like, you know, spam. It must be working for somebody because they keep doing it. So I don't know, these sales pages, Talia, that you're referring to, it's hard to say for sure because some of it might just be like a personal preference. Some people love, like they're just used to scrolling. And so having everything on a really long, especially when they're on mobile, having everything on a really long page is fine. And other people hate it. So maybe some of it might be some personal preference in there as well.
I can speak to that a little bit too.
Yeah.
Like I definitely can picture the type of sales pages that you're referring to. And I think sales page writing has changed over time. And I would say that, like, more importantly, in my opinion, more important than the length is the type of copy that's on the sales page. And by and large, I feel that consumers are tired of hearing like negative scare tactic sales page copy about all of their deficiencies and why they need your thing. And I think that sales page language is trending towards more aspirational language. And you know, I totally welcome anybody to challenge me on this, but I just think that that's what I'm seeing and what other sales page writers in my network are seeing as well. And so I would say that the sales page can be whatever length it can be to the extent that it's still delivering meaningful information. But I would look at like some of the other trends that are coming through about how it's written.
I
Yeah.
wonder if some of this doesn't get back to that bro marketing thing that we talk about, right? Like it's that whole strategy around, you know, there's like timers and you've only got a certain amount of time and oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And you start like putting all that pressure and sort of panic kind of feeling. And by the way, if you have any cognitive differences, putting a timer on a form is the worst possible thing you could do. I mean, really. But yeah, fear, like Kate just said, yeah, it's those scare tactics and making you feel crappy. And then, you know, probably you make the purchase at the bottom of the page and they still feel crappy. Like it's not a great experience at all. And I do think that's a very conventional sales tactic. And I don't think that kind of thing doesn't resonate for women typically. And it's one of the biggest reasons we would never tell somebody to do something that way, because we already know that it feels gross, you know, to experience that kind of thing. But yeah, when if otherwise, like if we're just talking about the length, that's totally subjective. And you know, a long sales page on a mobile is totally different on a laptop. So it can be really hard to define, you know, what is a good length for a sales page because it's going to be vastly different on different devices. But yeah, if we're talking about like salesy, gimmicky, crappy bro marketing, whatever, like sales page design, that's something else entirely.
Yeah, but I would say that when I write copy, I'm thinking about all the ways that people make decisions. So there's emotional decision makers and analytical decision makers. Some people need all that copy to finally get themselves over the line. So it's really about like, are there calls to action for all the different types of decision makers? Some people are really quick. They see it, they're like, yep, let me get it. So make sure that there's calls to action. So it doesn't even matter how long it is. Make sure you're talking to those different types of people. And the other thing I would say is that there's also a trend of less copy. I'm guilty of still loving my own words and sort of using a lot of copy, but it's like, can we get more concise? Can we get to the point faster? So length could also be based on the layout. So is it easy enough to scan and read? That's more of Steph's idea, you know, expertise, but it might be longer just because we're allowing the eye to rest a little bit more. So again, that's kind of another thing about length.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because there's so many things that are going to affect that. And I like what you were saying about different types of decision makers, and also that, people are might return to that page a couple of times. It's the same with the website. Like sometimes you sort of forget and you think that it's just a stranger for the first time visit every single time. But what if they've already been to look at that sales page 10 times? They're ready to make that decision. Are you going to make them scroll all the way to the bottom? Maybe not. So having those multiple points is a really good design principle for sure. Yeah, it's a great question, Talia.
We're at
Anything else,
2:30, or
Kathy?
we're at the end there.
Oh my goodness, look at that. All right.
Mhm.
Well, that we'll just wrap that up. So thank you so much for coming. Again, I really appreciate your time. And this conversation has been super fun. So thank you to Afton and Kate and Jennifer. Is there anything, we'll just take one small thing. If anybody wants to sort of, as a final, what's the one thing you want everybody here to leave with as a result of this conversation? Google reviews?
I've got one. Just
Yeah.
just go frickin' do it.
Nice.
Just do it.
Nice.
My favorite. Yeah, thank you.
Mine would be focus on the foundations. Yeah, just don't
Beautiful.
hate.
Mine would be
Wonderful.
don't fear the follow-up.
Nice. Very nice. I love it. All right. Well, mine would be just pick your thing and do it with intention. That would be my thing. So as a final wrap up, so everyone that was attending here today, because I don't have the link ready because I wasn't that prepared, we do have a follow-up webinar on the 25th, which is like a closer look at what it can be like to partner with us to work on a website, either a build or a rebuild, and to make some really serious impacts in your online visibility, which can really help to define your strategy and your intentions with all of the things that you do online. So you'll see that in your email. Otherwise, do make sure that you reach out and follow up with, or follow the guest speakers here today. So Afton, we were Scribe National, right? .ca. I don't think, did we put that in the chat anywhere? And Kate was getherhired.com. I know that one because obviously. And Jennifer is imyourcmo.com. So do go and check them out, follow them on social or wherever those places are that they provide really great content. And I hope you all have a beautiful day and thank you for joining us.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Steph.
everybody.